A lot of the issues that Stephen mentioned in terms of the weights on the quarter, we knew, especially the China weights, but China was down 11%, and maybe that was, I don't know, worse than expected. Guy, what do you make of the quarter?
I think that's what people are probably expecting. I mean, for me, yeah, people will look at China, 4% revenue growth, maybe 7-8% EPS growth. Services went the wrong way, in my opinion. We're down about 22% of overall revenue. With that revenue growth, I would have liked it to see better. And then you say to yourself, you know what, again, understanding this is backward looking, the stock I think just got a little more expensive. Now, 220 was a level that we held. We actually talked about it on this show. That had been prior support. I think the bounce that we've seen up to 240 probably did it a disservice into this print. I mean, I don't think you have to run away from it, but it wasn't all that exciting for me.
So we expected weakness in China. This was weaker weakness, more weakness for sure. So are we near the end of that? Who knows? Probably not, you would think, right? We haven't even gotten into, I guess this weekend starts off tariff season, apparently. Yeah. So we'll see. I think that I was surprised wearables actually didn't do a little better. I thought that holiday season was good. I would have thought, I mean, it's a relatively small portion, but I would have thought that would have done a little better. So, I mean, to me, nothing super shocking, just a little weaker than I thought, and it leaves me lukewarm on it.
No timeline, excuse me, on Apple Intelligence seems to be very troubling. I mean, it gets to a point where if people are buying domestic brands with AI features already, what is the time lapse that has to happen between the purchase of that Huawei phone or whatever it is.
Domestic in China.
And then, right, domestic in China. And the next Apple purchase. I mean, at some point, they're sort of forfeiting market share just by not having that AI feature, and who knows when those customers would come back, if they come back at all.
Well, I don't think anyone should be surprised by those China numbers. I mean, we just got fourth quarter numbers in China 2 weeks ago. We knew those were down 15% for the quarter. We know where they've been losing market share, where they're in third place, et cetera, et cetera. We know that the local administration has been supplying subsidies for low to mid-tier phones. So, by the way, Apple's not a low to mid-tier phone, so you could make an argument that that really shouldn't be eating into their market share. But tell me who's even close to Apple everywhere else in the world, and that includes China 2.0, and which is India, at least in terms of a smartphone market that's, I would say, in its infancy. And you're not going to find one. So to me, the fact that the services business was up, better than expected, north of 14%, that the margin on that business, that the ASPs on the phones are selling everywhere else in the world, and by the way, haven't priced in any AI, these numbers were fine. This wasn't even about the quarter, by the way. There was nothing in this quarter we expected to be good. And the fact is, I think you got a better number on services. The biggest issue I have for Apple right now that's not China are regulatory dynamics in Europe, which are a big deal when 30% of your App Store revenues, 30% of your services revenues come from the App Store. So that's something to worry about. But as someone who's long Apple, and I'm not pounding the table on Apple here, but you can't tell me there's a lot of good news priced into Apple. This is a stock I want to own because there's zero. And DeepSeek, if anything, showed.
News in Apple. Is there enough bad news priced into Apple?
I don't know. I mean, haven't we been talking about China for 6 to 9 months in Apple? And that's related to the handset sales and some tariffs. I mean, I think the tariff is still an unknown dynamic. But again, and we know that Apple caught a bid on the day of DeepSeek because the sense is that the efficiency for AI to the smartphone could happen and proliferate faster. So sometimes I feel like I have to really defend Apple here. I'm sure most people are long Apple, but it doesn't seem like there's much sentiment in favor.
All fair, and the margins were better. And I'm going to beat you to a question you typically ask,
which is
what do you want to hear from? What's your first question on the
conference call? What is your first question?
Free cash flow miss. I think the street was like $36 billion. It came in at 27 or so. And I'm just trying to do the math, which I can't do that quickly. But where did that come from? But to Tim's point, we've been talking about potential weakness in China for quite some time. The flip side of that coin is, though, this was supposed to be, and maybe it's going to be a couple quarters, the big upgrade cycle vis-a-vis AI and those things. I mean, for these numbers suggest that didn't come to fruition.